We did it our way. Not like the WCW. We did it our way. Not like AAA, New Japan, All Japan, FMW. We did it our way.
What I have an extra large in is a heart. That's right, I've got an extra large heart, and that's what counts in sport. It's nothing else. Aren't you crackers so fortunate to have the Funk Brothers around?
I am the meanest man in professional wrestling. They had to pull me off a roller while I was beating on the man's body.
That egg-sucking dog, Dusty Rhodes.
It's the most physical, dangerous form of wrestling in the world today, bar none. We did it our way because we love it that way. We love it that way. Forever! 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 Forever!
This is Terry Funk with dyslexia. Ref for me and Bert. Ref for me and Bert. Ref for me and Bert.
I don't know how to hate it. Like quite yet. I don't know how to attack it on like it being the stupidest thing I've ever heard. Maybe I don't quite understand it, but at the same time too, the fact that I can't wrap my head around it, I think just speaks to the overall badness of it.
I was actually going to write a ref for me and Brett joke, and I accidentally did Bert, and I was like, this is it. This is my art.
I'm going to send that to Dory Funk Jr. so he can beat your ass at 84 years old.
All right. Hello, and welcome to 10 Bell Pod. I am the dyslexic Nick Alexander with wrestling commentator, host of events, Tyler Wood.
Thank you, Nick. Thank you, Ken. I guess that's your name, dyslexically.
And we are, of course, joined by Northeast Wrestling, Pro Wrestling Hall of Fame member, the Man Scout, Jake Manning.
Did you say Northeast Wrestling and Pro Wrestling Hall of Famer? When did I get in the Pro Wrestling Hall of Fame?
I don't think I had an.
I thought I heard an and in there. Did he hit an and in there, Tyler?
No, I don't think so. Sorry, can we take that back? I wanted to agree with whatever you were saying, Jake. I apologize. I was looking up Terry Funk's cage match, so we can take it back.
Thank you for realizing that you just said yes and. Shame on you. Shame on you, because I thought you and I were on the same team here. Apparently not.
So. No, because if we're not on the same team, then it becomes fuck Tyler. I like the fuck Nick season. That was pretty
I thought that's where we were going. I thought that we had gone through this whole thing together, and finally we were turning on Nick, but okay, fine. We're back to fuck Tyler.
Fuck Tyler forever.
Forever.
Today, we are discussing a wrestler that everyone claims they love, but few truly understand his importance and his place in history, the unprecedented ground he covered in wrestling history. He's seen as the crazy old grandpa of wrestling to so many people. The old hardcore guy from ECW, Chainsaw Charlie, who tagged with Mick between Austin and Rock promos in the 90s. Technically, you're not wrong. But in pro wrestling, this hybrid of sports and live theater, this amalgamation of acting, athleticism, ego, violence, comedy, tragedy, spectacle, how do you define what greatness is? In something where the outcome is agreed upon, is it who draws the most money, who does the highest high spots, the smoothest combo of chain wrestling? Is it who sells the most merch, wins the most belts, who's on TV the most? Is it longevity, adaptability, creativity, courage, toughness, rebellion, passion? admiration of fans, the praise of critics, the love of dipshit podcasters. Because this is the story of someone who has all of that. But maybe greatness is something different in this industry, something intangible, more than numbers. Maybe it's what you left behind. There's a cliche we all use when we really want to drive home like how important a wrestler was, and it's he had pro wrestling running through his veins. But that doesn't work here, because for all the nights, the matches, the just over 5 decades, this person opened up their own veins and their own soul for this art form. It is his blood flowing through every fabric of pro wrestling that gives it its life force. Through industry booms and recessions, through the rise and fall of company after company, through grand scheme systemic changes, he was a through line, never hesitating to spread his knowledge, his passion, his genius. It is what he passed on to generations of younger talent, the pieces of himself that he sacrificed for this profession that today's pro wrestling world stands on. If there were a pro wrestling religion, the one true God its followers would worship would be none other than the great Terry Funk.
Why do you expect us to follow these?
Especially this one. Like, how much you've been writing, you've been practicing in the mirror all week about this, spoke with a language coach or somebody, or your buddy Patton Oswalt helps you with a little bit of punch up on that speech. I don't know. Whatever you Hollywood types do out there. Yeah, what do you want us to say? A ditto?
You just called him God.
Yeah, exactly. You realize how are we supposed to be like, yeah, one of my favorite wrestlers, one of the coolest guys I ever met, but you just called him God, and the fact that we have not built a religion around him yet. Like, what do you want us to say here? Yes, we should build a statue of that mountain outside of the Amarillo airport and not the astronaut that went to the moon or whatever astronaut that went to space. Actually, I think that's what the airport's named after, is an astronaut, to which I'm like, really, it should be named after Terry Funk, because nobody's flew out of that airport more times than him. So there you go. That's my follow-up.
Ditto.
Thank you, Tyler. Thank you for yes-anding that bit. Thank you.
All right, so if you are of a certain age, raised on WWE, Terry Funk is tremendously undervalued. I have undervalued Terry Funk at points in my life, and I hope these next 2 episodes can do something to change that. Hopefully we can unravel the 1984 level WWF propaganda you've been doused with. And that's 1984 propaganda like the Orwell book, and 1984 when Vince started his national expansion, which ended in him being able to feed you 1984 level propaganda. But Tyler, who started watching wrestling in the early 2000s,
23 years ago.
Jake Manning, who started wrestling in the early 2000s. What are your kind of opening statements, thoughts on the Funker?
I'm going to have a hard time summing this up following Nick's very overshadowing intro. The majority of my Terry Funk exposure for a while was his involvement in the Hell in a Cell match between Mankind and Undertaker. Obviously, being a WWE kid, that was the extent to which he really had any involvement in WWE. The portion of WWE that they were open to exploring. He just wasn't a huge part of WWE, and I did a little bit of looking back at things at the behest of my grandfather a little bit. Not him doing what Jake does, like, hey, you dumb motherfucker, why don't you go watch a Funk Brothers match from Japan? But he sang high praises of the Funk Brothers and their tag team work in the territories and Florida mainly, and had very high praise for Terry Funk. Mick Foley always speaking highly of him. I went back, I watched some of his stuff, and the things that he did for hardcore wrestling cannot be understated, bringing it to the forefront as a legitimate form of wrestling. And I don't know, it's so hard to sum up a whole subgenre of wrestling, but I think he put it pretty well on his Art of Wrestling podcast when he said, I didn't get involved in hardcore wrestling in Japan. I brought it over there. So it's been really interesting to go back and learn even more about somebody that was really one of the toughest people in the history of wrestling, but he had a great combination of toughness, but a love for the business that softened him in a way that I don't feel like a lot of wrestlers, especially of that time of heavy kayfabe, really had. So I'm glad we get to pay homage to the Funker today.
I'm going to keep it very short and concise because I feel like I got a pretty good idea to explain how incredible Terry Funk is. The reason why Paul London got so popular, got on Ring of Honor, is because Paul, I think, had some sort of association with Dory Funk, so then Terry was aware of Paul, and then on a shoot interview, Terry Funk just mentioned Paul London's name, and people were like, oh, if Terry Funk likes this guy, then he's the guy. And Paul, I think, said it better than anybody else. He said that Terry Funk is a magician, and you need that in professional wrestling, the magic of it. Terry understood the magic of professional wrestling better than anybody else. Character, promo, in-ring, all of it, and even down to the TV aspect of it. Even though he was around in the territory era from a man who was born in the 40s, understood tricks to television. And in a story that I believe Daphne told me best conveys why and how he was a magician, in that Terry Funk in WCW was having this big hardcore brawl or whatever, and they wanted him to slam somebody's head in the door, and they weren't sure how to work it. And Terry's like, I know how. And he just took a brick and put it in the doorway. So that way, when you swing the door with the guy's head in there, it'll hit the brick before it hit the guy's head. But because of the angle in which you're shooting it, it looks like you just flung this door as hard and as fast as possible. But as long as you don't shoot the floor where the brick is, it'll look like the most violent thing ever. For Terry Funk to know that, that's why he's a magician. And the thing is, he knows hundreds of things like that about every aspect of professional wrestling. And that is why he is a magician.
Quick rundown of sources. I like to do that for like the big ones. The biggest source outside of our love for Terry Funk, watching him, listening to him, or just knowing all the things ever, if you're Jake Manning, Terry's book, Terry Funk, More Than Just Hardcore. No better way to do this than through his words. Cornette has several invaluable things on or with Terry Funk, and then obviously Tyler used Art of Wrestling because he's a mark. All right, so to tell the story of Terry Funk, it is important to set the stage with his family. Dad, Dory Sr., of course, Terry's brother, Dory Jr., will be deeply woven into this, but I don't want this to turn into a Dory Sr. or a Dory Jr. episode. The start of the legendary Texan Funk dynasty actually begins in Indiana. Dory Funk Sr. was born in 1919 and raised by his dad, Adam, in Hammond, Indiana. And Grandpa Funk was a police officer, and with it being the 1920s in a town that's about 35 minutes from Chicago, he often tangled with the likes of Al Capone's cronies. So that's what Gramps was doing, mafia shit. Father Dory, badass amateur wrestler, like legit tough as they come, multiple time state champion in high school in amateur wrestling. He went to Indiana as a collegiate wrestler, someone that would wrestle or fight, for that matter, anyone, any place, anytime.
I'm interested to know what his dad would think of wrestling today, because Terry seemed to be pretty on board with how wrestling evolved and changed over time, but being a second generation talent to somebody like that, is there anybody that's around from like that far back that's like transitioned to doing shoot interviews? Because I want to get their takes on like what the fuck's going on.
You got to look at like Mark Lewin, who wrestled Lou Thez, who wrestled before there was television.
Mm-hmm.
But Mark Lewin had a young spirit about him that he thought of wrestling one way, he got away from wrestling, and then probably came back and saw the way wrestling was. I'm like, this isn't really what I envisioned wrestling to be, but I'm sure there's probably aspects to it that he would be like, oh, that's cool, or that's interesting, or this guy's doing something, and he'd be passionate about it, to which that's exactly what Terry Funk is that I grew up and was always told wrestling is this way, and I think wrestling is better this way, but this is the way wrestling is now. These are the things I don't like, but these are the things I really like about it, and these are things that are like different than what I grew up in my sensibilities. So you have to recognize to a point, every great artist, that, hey, this shit's kind of moved past me a little bit, but this is what's going on right now, what people want to hear. So therefore you have to either be in tune with that, move on, or just stop doing it. And Terry wasn't about to stop doing anything.
CC every major wrestling podcast that has an old timer on it at the moment.
Yeah, like where it's just I hate this thing, I hate that, this isn't good. Yeah, there's a lot of shit that isn't good, but you got to find what's good, and you got to talk about it, and you got to hold that up high and protect it almost in some aspects of it, because the bad wrestling and the bullshit and the corporatism and the politicking will just fucking ruin it.
Dory Sr. would, of course, be a pro wrestler, and he got in by just decimating strongmen in the hotbed that was Chicago, until someone finally smartened him up, if for any reason, not to lose every wrestler in their promotion by having Dory shatter their bones.
I wonder if when they showed him that, they're like, this is the Chicago way. Like, is that what happened? That'd be good. See, funny little joke. Real quick, done, in, out. So I'm the comedian of the show. I mean, it's Jake Manning and 2 comedians, but right now, I'm looking at a half right now. So
whatever, kid. You take the bumps.
So Dory was a man who had wrestled Gorgeous George in packed stadiums, had matches with NWA World Champion Lou Thez. Dory was mentored by Ed the Strangler Lewis. He worked with Fritz von Erich, Nature Boy Buddy Rogers. He wrestled Mike DiBiase, Ed's adopted dad, who was, of course, the $1,000 man, because, money was different than before Nixon and the Federal Reserve were like, let's make it worth whatever we want.
When we weren't on the gold standard was the problem, Nicholas. Just say it aloud. Let the Illuminati hear, because we're not on the gold standard. That's why things are gone to shit.
Libertarian Jake Manscout Manning.
Listen, I know about the Constitution, okay? I know. I was there in the Philippines, okay? And he did what all rich white boys do. Or I wasn't a rich white boy. I had to go. I fought for this country. Don't tell me what courage is.
Thank you, Jesse.
You're welcome. Thanks for reading the Constitution.
But all of this is just the very foundation of what pro wrestling as we know it is. Dory Sr. came up in that era, and he passed a lot of that on to his sons. But before Dory was knee-deep in wrestling, he was just a family man doing some amateur spots here and there. He worked for the Pullman Company from the Pullman strike. Google it if you want to be distraught with our country. February 3rd, 1941, Dory and his wife Dorothy birthed their first son, Dory Jr., who would go on to be one of the all-time great pro wrestlers in his own right. After that, Dory enlisted in the Navy for World War II. Senior, it would be fucking crazy if Dory Jr. did it.
He wanted to, though.
They were tough.
He wanted to. Real bad.
As Terry tells it, Dad was on one of the smaller boats that sort of supported the big warships, shooting down kamikazes. So pretty intense. As Terry's dad, Dory, was serving in World War II, his wife, Dorothy, would again go into labor. But this one was breached. She was hemorrhaging, and she and her baby needed blood to survive. Hammond, being a small Indiana town in the 40s, there was only one person within reach that had her blood type, the doctor delivering the baby, which he gave her as he delivered the baby. And that is how Terrence D. Funk was brought into the world June 30th, 1944. That is the setup for Terry Funk, Mafia, Gorgeous George, World War II, blood.
I was born covered in blood. I've spent my career covered in blood, and I'll die covered in blood.
So as Terry grew up, his father, of course, was in the wrestling business. And Terry just recalls living in this circus environment. Most wrestling families would just tow a trailer or a camper, live out of that, usually in the same kind of like area, a la the circus. When your territory run was done, you packed up, went on to the next one. Dory actually took the brunt of that one, moving school after school after school. But by the time Terry was getting into school, the family had settled down. That happened after Dory, had bounced around a few promotions all over the country, and they settled down in Texas on a ranch in Umbarger near Amarillo, which would be later known as the Double Cross Ranch. Dory Sr. eventually expanded into the business side of pro wrestling, getting into promoting shows in Amarillo for Western States Sports, just NWA Western States for shorthand. This promotion also founded by a different Dory, Dory Denton, in 46. And this wasn't some outlaw mud show. They had been part of the NWA since 51, and they had weekly TVs. But by 55, Dory and business partner Carl Sarpelis took over, with Dory outright owning it after Carl's passing in 57.
It's funny because Texas had multiple territories. Like, that's how big it is. It was like divided up. Like, there was Dallas, and then Houston was kind of its own territory, but it was kind of a part of the Dallas office. But then Amarillo is like its own thing as well, too. So, Yeah, it's important because you could, in this day, Texas is so big, you could go work Dallas for a while. And then after you finish them in Dallas, literally go over to Amarillo and then do like the same stuff all over again. And nobody would know because people just, the world wasn't as connected. Amarillo seemed to be like a little bit smaller of a territory. Like Dallas was obviously a big metropolitan area where there's a lot of hustle and bustle. And, Amarillo felt like kind of those middle of the country territories like Central States. It was very simple. It had its business. It had its regulars. And when you have that, you have to curate what's going on very closely. Subtle things could literally kill a town. So you have to curate it with an iron claw and make sure things are done properly in each one of the towns and everything is promoted properly, because obviously it's not Dallas where you have a larger population base. You're making sure that everybody in Amarillo is coming out every single week and buying tickets and all of some spot shows in smaller towns. Like, you're making sure that everything is buttoned up for this. So I'm sure Terry's dad very much instilled that, and maybe that's why Terry was so wild in rebellion. It's probably his dad had to run this whole territory very buttoned up, and Terry was obviously rebelling against that for the rest of his life.
Nice Iron Claw reference.
To the wrong Texan father.
As a kid, Terry mentioned that his dad would bring over, several of the wrestlers in town to talk shop, trade war stories, sometimes literal war stories. Terry would sneak out, listen, and just got the full rundown of pro wrestling history. Little did he know he could have just subscribed to 10 Bill Pod. That's where Terry's love of wrestling really develops. Not only is he lost in the magic of it being real to him, as, we all experience, but his own dad and his friends were pro wrestlers telling all these wild stories that might as well have been like fucking Paul Bunyan tall tales. At To It, Dad began teaching Terry amateur wrestling when he was just 5. And of course, Terry and Dory had been shooting on each other from day one, having the normal little brother dust-ups. But before entering the ring, Terry played a little football. He was good enough in high school to go play JUCO, but he ended up at West Texas State University, which I believe is now West Texas A&M. And this is something we've brought up on the podcast before. I don't know how many NFL guys this school pumped out, but it was a fuck ton of pro wrestlers. Not just Terry, but Dusty Rhodes, Stan Hansen, Bobby Duncombe, Bruiser Brody, Dory Jr., Tully Blanchard, Ted DiBiase, Tito Santana, all played there at their respective times. Not together, that would be crazy. Playing college football allowed Terry to bulk up a little bit. I think he said he went from 185 to 225 to 240. So, not quite Batista, but at 6'1", that's a big dude.
This is all ham and eggs, too. This isn't like protein shakes and science. This is fucking, you ate shit and moved things and you got bigger.
I feel like a broken record saying this, but instead of finishing college, Terry would drop out short of graduating.
How short, Nick? How short?
4 motherfucking hours.
Which, again, is why Paul Ellering is considered a scholar by professional wrestlers.
Just hang on for 4 more hours. But, I mean, look, man, he's trying to prove it.
One class is 3.
I don't give a goddamn.
After my senior year of basketball was done, being in school and being like, why the fuck am I still here? Like, what am I doing? It was done. It was over. Like, I didn't give a shit about school.
You're so close, though. Why not just...
Yeah. I mean, I finished,
Let me finish, but once I realized I was never good enough to beat Jeff Jarrett in one-on-one basketball,
Okay.
like, why? What have I got to live for now?
This is college in like the 60s. So like if he doesn't finish, he's out what, $50?
Yeah.
Oh, I know,
School
right?
still owes him money.
Yeah, like they probably had a thing where like the GI Bill, your kids can go to school for free too. Like probably had some that like where they were paying him to be there. It's like, oh, I got enough of this goddamn money going to college, like so.
After foregoing his last few credits to go to the pros, Terry got trained up by Dad officially. And he would make his debut at the age of 21. Before this big debut that's often cited, Terry said he did have a handful of like smaller matches, spot shows, working out the kinks before he did the real thing in front of his hometown. But what is credited as Terry Funk's first match, December 9th, 1965 in Amarillo, facing Sputnik Monroe, catching up to big brother Dory, who was already in the show. Terry and brother quickly rose through the ranks of their father's territory. Sure, there was probably some amount of nepotism there, especially like the ease of access to getting into the business. But Dory Funk Sr. was a hard ass, and they were given nothing.
Oh, 1,000%, and they were asked to do fucking everything, including when people were like, well, I'd like to try that wrestling. And obviously Dory Sr. like, well, come down to the ring at this time and get in the ring with my son. And basically Dory Sr. would look at Terry and Dory Jr. and be like, you have to hurt this man. If you do not hurt this man, you are disappointing me as a father. And so Terry said it was the thing he hated the most in this world, is these guys that just had a dream of being in pro wrestling. And Terry would have to go in there and like physically hurt them, like almost injure them to an extent. Like if they didn't walk out of the ring with an injury of some sort or be completely obliterated as a man, Dory Sr. would be extremely upset. And Terry's like, why do we have to do this? Why? I hate this. Why is this thing that I have to do? To which Dory Sr. would always reply, because this guy thinks he can come in and take your money. This man saw you wrestle a match and he thinks he can do what you do. And you can't let him take that money away from you. And that's the attitude you've got to have. That is a level of intensity. It is fucked up, but at the same time, too, will drive you to be successful. Having that mentality of this guy's trying to take your spot and having that put into you in your brain. I mean, that's stuff that Tom Brady used to make himself one of the greatest quarterbacks of all time. That's stuff that Michael Jordan would invent to be the best basketball player ever. But those are all games that those men were playing. This was Terry fighting with a man who was probably 5 to 10 years his senior, and he had to basically hand him his lunch every single time, no matter how big or how small he was. That was his job to do.
Terry was in the wrestling business so long that he went from, you've got to beat up this man so he won't take your money, to opening up a wrestling school, which is beat up this man so he will give you money.
I know today people are like, oh my God, he did a front flip. We got to protect the business. But this is back when you actually did have to protect the business. If someone came in too and they were like, let me go beat up these phonies, they would have closed the promotion overnight. If someone came into your house thinking they could be a pro wrestler, you had to send them back kind of fucking believing in kayfabe again because you just fucked their shit up.
Well, like I said, this is a small territory, so you have to make sure that that is the case.
Yeah.
Because a drop in 50 tickets, 70 tickets in Amarillo and some of those smaller Texas towns, that's going to affect the bottom line. That's going to affect the pay, and then you're going to have a hard time paying the rent on stuff. Those are also 50 to 70 less people that are buying concessions that you probably get a cut of as well, too. So, yeah, financially, it's extremely important to be completely buttoned up. And Dory Sr. dispensed his sons to implore that justice.
So the Funk Brothers wrestled as a tag team, also singles. Terry in those early days tagged with football pro turned wrestling pro Wahoo McDaniel a good bit. And then he starts facing names that are, again, just the foundation of the house of pro wrestling. Dick the Bruiser, Bob Geigel, a Dutch Savage, a Wooden Shoes, yeah. Because the Dutch wooden shoe. Okay. Terry.
What the fuck? No. Somehow, like, that joke does work. I didn't laugh. I like that joke. I would never laugh at it, and nor should anybody ever laugh at it. But can't blow through that one. You know what I'm saying? That's the thing. You had a good joke, and then you blow through the punchline. Congratulations. But you let us sit in the Terry Funk dyslexia bit. Let us sit in that for a half an hour.
Nick, you got to watch more 1960s wrestling. Grab a rest hold and slow down.
By 66, Terry is slowly starting to dabble elsewhere. First matches in Kansas City, his first matches in St. Louis. However, he's home base out of West Texas, where Terry and brother Dory scooped up their first tag team titles August 11th, 66, beating previously mentioned Mike DiBiase and his partner Bob Brown. So as Dory and Terry grew, developed, they were becoming immensely popular, especially in Amarillo. They were like this less tragic Von Erich family, maybe not quite as like rock star-ish because, you know, they had the 80s vibe, but Terry
Dory and, of course, Dad were very much over. And that would help Terry start branching out into the National Wrestling Alliance. Not only did the Funk family's reputation open doors for Terry across the wrestling map, but it was his development as an in-ring performer and promo guy that was catapulting. In 1967, Terry branched out to the AWA before leaving the nest for real for the first time to stay in a different territory, Championship Wrestling from Florida, where he spent roughly 3 months until Dad called him saying he needed him back. He'd pay him more money than Terry was earning in that sort of lower mid-card spot.
And I think the thing that kind of speaks to the love of Terry Funk and the amazing thing of Terry Funk is, yeah, sure, great wrestler. Great wrestler. But, you could debate that, Harley was better or Flair was better. Like saying this person's the best wrestler, the greatest wrestler, it's a weird thing. But where Terry's strength is not only was he a great wrestler, a generous wrestler, he also was just a cool guy to be in a locker room with. You could have the coolest locker room in the entire world. You could have everybody's friends just hanging out, whatever. Put Terry Funk in that, and it's better. It's just better. He's interacting with everybody. He's cool as shit. He's fun to be around, likable, interested in what you're doing, willing to critique, help, be there for you, support you, whatever you need. Nobody wants to work with an asshole. I think that is something that you can never say that, Terry Funk was an asshole. And the fact that he was the complete opposite of that made him somebody that everybody wanted to work with. Now, obviously, also another thing that was a kind of a critique, he was a bit comedy. He would oversell. I don't know where that actually came from or where that started or if it was during this era, but I have a feeling it's probably from him rebelling against his father, who I imagined had a very tight grip and was very much like, be believable, be believable, be believable. And I think Terry was just wanted to have fun, man. And I think that kind of rubbed off in the locker room. And yeah, sure, saying you're Dory Funk Sr.'s son opened some doors, but when you open the door and the guy's cool as shit, can't really hate him for it. You're going to get thrust upon us anyways. Oh, but you're an awesome and cool guy and you're hardworking. Then yeah, come on in, man. You're the best.
Jake, it's funny that you talk about the comical overselling, because in his interview with old CC Colt Cabana, Colt tried to bring up hey, it's kind of funny how you work things like this. And Terry got dead fucking serious. And he's like, I'm not out there trying to have a goofy fucking match. And it's funny considering who he's talking to, that he's kind of running down comedy wrestling at the same time. But it's there's got to be a spark of he's in on the joke of he knows what he's doing's a bit over the top. But I don't know how much of that too comes in as the older he gets, the overselling kind of accentuates a bit. But either way, it makes it more compelling. It makes it more fun to watch.
I think it's more of a situation that he recognizes that you're working to the people in the upper deck. Mm-hmm. So obviously you have to be over the top within your selling. Yeah. It's you have to be very, very over the top. It has to be very visual, where if you kind of keep it small and legit and it's not as big. And I think Terry has always seen pro wrestling as this big thing. And obviously too, you have a big weird sell like that, it makes that guy's move look better. And also too, the crowd reacts to it, whether it's a laugh, whether it's ooh, whether it's whatever, it's a reaction. They're emoting something, they reacted off to it. And that's why I think he just continued to do it. It incited a reaction, where if you just kind of took something and it just fell, and yeah, that's the more believable thing to do, it doesn't incite a reaction, which the whole game of this whole thing is creating a reaction. I could see why he would get upset about that. It's I'm not out here just fucking trying to look like a moron to entertain myself. I'm out here trying to get a reaction out of people. I'm trying to make this guy's move look as devastating as possible. I'm trying to make it look over the top. I'm trying to look like he killed me.
So Terry was back in Western States. He grabbed another tag team title with Dory. And then August 22nd, 1967, he got an NWA world title shot at Gene Kiniski, wrestling to a time limit draw. After that, it's 2 more years of working at home, wrestling people like Dick Murdoch, Rio de Janeiro's own Pat Patterson. That's a reference to the IC title, Tyler.
No, I know it's the thing that he won that he didn't win. I know the deal. Nick, get the fuck out of here.
All right.
WWE fed me that one.
Okay, all right. Then February 11th, 1969, Dory Funk Jr. won the NWA world title from Gene Kiniski. Not only did this just like pop Western State territory, during Dory's title reign, Terry often traveled with him, learning the ropes of what it meant to be a world-class wrestler and seeing firsthand kind of the pressures that come with holding that belt. Dory would hold the NWA title for over 4 years before dropping it to Harley Race for his first NWA title. So that is where we are at pro wrestling at this moment in history. We're 4 years away from Harley Race winning his first title, and Terry is someone who wrestled in Ring of Honor. He worked the Gathering of the Juggalos. He worked with our own Jake Manning. That is how ingrained into this shit he is.
He's traveling with his brother around this time. It's like 69, you said?
Yeah.
Cursory look, but cage match. He's still logging 141 matches in 69, 270. And you got to imagine some of that of like him traveling with his brother is like, how much of that's like, hey, you know, my brother's a wrestler too. I'm in this territory. Why don't you book him? Why don't you you give us a little bit more money? And he's getting crazy amounts of work. This is the stuff that you hear about on all the old shoot interviews when everybody talks about traveling 300 days a year, wrestling all over the fucking place. It's insane. 25 matches some of these months, 20 matches, and these are just the ones that are logged.
Well, and here's the thing too that's probably helpful. You're booking the NWA champion Dory Funk Jr. Obviously, there's going to be accommodations for him, you know, whether that's a ride from the airport to the hotel and all those things. Terry can then tag along through that. You just got to double up the accommodation. Just another room, or maybe they split a room together, or however you do it. But some of the things that are afforded the NWA heavyweight champion, Terry can kind of jump on that as well, too. But also, too, where it becomes useful in these territories is that, you know, Terry can accompany Dory to the ring. If there needs to be some sort of a finish where there's an interference, where the local babyface gets screwed by Dory Funk Jr., Terry can be the guy that does that. You know, it's like, if that Terry Funk wasn't here, like our local guy would have won. Or maybe it goes Broadway, or something happens, or there's a big smoz where Terry comes in and after the bell's over, they beat the crap out of the babyface, and then this other babyface comes in and it sets up for a tag match. And then you could have a situation where, you know, oh my gosh, the NWA champ got pinned in this tag match. It sets up for a rematch again, and then he loses again, you know. And Terry can be used as a vehicle to protect the NWA world champion and protect the local hero from taking a clean loss to the NWA World Champion. So it serves a purpose. So it's not just like handouts to Terry. You know, he can be there to serve a function and a purpose. And also, too, it's a weird, wild, westy still type world, even with NWA promoters and local promoters. I'm sure they would love to fuck over Dory Funk and have their guy accidentally win the NWA World title. But, you know, when you have two Funk brothers there, they're going to protect the integrity of the NWA because that's what their father has beaten into them.
So as Dory is NWA world champ, Terry's still proving himself. In the late 60s, you start seeing him play around with hardcore wrestling for the first time. In the mid-60s, Dory Sr. had possibly invented, that's debatable, definitely popularized the Texas Death Match, first against Iron Mike DiBiase. So naturally, Terry is going to start doing these too.
Bro, the story that he told about that on the fucking Art of Wrestling, there's a Texas death match between his dad and Ted DiBiase's dad, Mike, where they wrestled hours. There were 40 pinfalls. They both went to the hospital in the same ambulance. They fought in the back of the ambulance, took the fight down to Main Street, and both got arrested. And he goes, how's that for an angle? So I think he also claimed that his dad had over 100 deathmatch either wins or just competed in over 100 of them. So yeah, he's got it runs in the veins, the fucking hepatitis filled veins.
Terry would wrap up the 60s having matches against a young Dusty Rhodes, and he started 70 doing two things. Tell me which one is scarier. First, bear wrestling, and I'm not talking about Pat Patterson's bears.
Ooh, got him.
Real ones like Markoff and Ben the Brute.
Why are all the bears Russian?
That's where they're from.
They are the ones that perform the best. The American bears, they're so lazy. They don't respect the art of that is of bear wrestling.
The worst part is that all the Native American bears are actually Italian bears.
Oh, given the fact that we're talking about Dusty Rhodes here, did this come up in your research, Nick? I heard it in one of the things I was watching. Dusty originally wanted to be trained by the Funks, but they told him to fuck off, basically, and he had to go somewhere else and lie. Is that right?
That came up when we covered Dusty. He had to go up to, I think it was New York or New Jersey, and he lied about working for the Funks, and I think he got his ass handed to him, but that's how he got into business.
Dude,
that's right, baby. My hatred for the Funks runs deep, baby. Since day -1. When it's not even my first day in the business, I was allowed to be in the business because of them Funk brothers. That's why I hate them so much. Disgusted by them. I will fight them to the end of time, baby. And once time ends, I will could start over again.
Dude, they're so fucking old they bullied Dusty Rhodes before you got started. That's insane.
Terry also would start up a feud with Harley Race. Jake, who you fighting to the death, a bear or Harley Race?
Give me the bear. Give me the
yeah, that makes sense with
bear.
your gimmick.
Give me the fucking bear. And I'll take that bear any day of the week. And here's the other thing too is I've shaken hands with Harley Race and Terry Funk. The fucking meat hooks on these fucking individuals is terrifying. It was terrifying at the time that I did it. I can't fathom shaking hands with these individuals in their fucking prime. Scary, terrifying, and the fact that they would lay hands on each other, even if it is in pro wrestling terms. I don't want to think about that violence. Like I would like to sleep well tonight.
Would you shake hands with the bear?
Yeah, absolutely, no doubt. Without it, I probably I shook hands with a dolphin and at Great America that one time where AEW had a little field trip that was just weird. Yeah, they shut down Six Flags for us and they let us ride on all the rides, awesome. And then they gave us our own little private dolphin show. And yeah,
meanwhile, if you wanted to break into the business when Terry goddamn Funk was a kid, you'd have to get your goddamn leg broken. But you got these young fuckers riding Superman the Ride 2 years into the goddamn business.
Yep.
1970 is also the first time Terry heads to Japan to wrestle for Japan Pro Wrestling Alliance. There he would team with Brother Dory, and they actually faced a young tag team of Antonio Inoki and Giant Baba on the same team. They actually had got there just in time because Japan Pro Wrestling Alliance is crumbling here. We're right there, 2 years away from the big split, where obviously Baba goes to All Japan and Inoki forms New Japan.
That's how ingrained he is in this shit, to echo Nicholas. This is before All Japan and New Japan are a thing. That is how ingrained he is in this shit.
Yeah, they're the reason that the Japan Alliance broke up. They couldn't beat the Funks, and they're like, you know what, it's your fault. No, it's your fault.
Back in the States, in 71, the Funks went back to Florida to feud with the OG Briscoe brothers. And Terry starts mowing down a few titles here. He wins the Florida TV tournament as just the Texan. And he also got into the Florida Southern title scene, taking it off the Grappler, a.k.a. Mr. Wrestling 2, which he used that to then wrestle Dick Murdoch and continue his feud with the Briscoe brothers. Terry continued to grow his credentials, and by the early 70s, he's a megastar in his own right, splitting time between this sort of brash Texan brawler and almost Bruiser Brody wild man. And also, he could just be like a good guy fighting off the villains. This period was essential to Terry because he proved he's not just Dory Sr.'s kid. He's not just the NWA champion's brother. He's a draw. He was hanging in the business no matter the territory or the opponent. This is the modern indie darling equivalent. Coming up into his own, the fans are ready, begging for him to pop off. If it were 2011, Terry Funk would have been signed by WWE and buried by Cena. What also helped Terry was his promo style. His promos were unique. They came off as unpolished passion, and he worded them perfectly, cleverly, not an ounce of fat, underrated, very great promo.
He slowed things down. Kind of had that Texas kind of drawl, like when he was a babyface, it was kind of an aw shucks, like, and he would take his time with it. He would never rush anything. The volume was always high, but his cadence were all very slow, soft, even if it was at a high volume. I mean, Terry Funk was a guy that said, if you think you're moving slow, move slower. That's kind of what he was doing also with promos, to which you really had to listen. And when you listened to that very soft voice that he would cut, you'd have to listen. But then his screaming too, like he would just take his goddamn time through what I'm trying to say. Like he would hang on vowels and letters to drag out the words to help inflect passion and emotion.
And he also, the guy sounds, all due respect, a bit odd. He's got a very unique voice, and in entertainment, that is a better asset sometimes than a good voice. You know, if somebody has like that stereotypical radio voice, that's cool and everything, but it's a dime a dozen. I want somebody that sticks out in a crowd. I want that guy that just got done beating the shit out of somebody and he comes on with a high-pitched, soft-spoken voice. That's going to draw me in more than another person screaming, another gravelly-voiced motherfucker. That's got its own place, but Terry, he brought you in a lot of different ways.
I have a weird voice. It hasn't helped me with shit.
Well, I guess unique instead of odd.
Okay, thank you. So all these traits, all of his accomplishments were setting the stage for the next step of Terry Funk's career, one day stepping out of his brother's shadow and reaching the absolute pinnacle of pro wrestling. But before that, in 1972, the Funks picked their side in that Japan wrestling civil war when they sided with All Japan. Two big factors. Inoki kind of rubbed them the wrong way back when they went to JPW in 1970. They kind of didn't like him. And then this is also the beginning of the NWA is slowly going to commit to working with All Japan, while WWF and WWF are going to back New Japan.
A goddamn big chin motherfucker thinks he's the best thing since sliced bread. Give me goddamn Baba any day of the week. He's 7'4", but God, when he smiles, it lights up a world. At least it lights up a cigar, but that big chin motherfucker, no ass having, towel wagging Inoki. He could stick his promotion up his ass.
There is a Japanese person listening to this through some sort of translation that is his eye is twitching. He's showing no other emotion, but he is ready to fly over here and beat your ass, Jake, for the disrespect.
And if you are, I'm sorry for every Japanese word I've ever said.
Oh, also, I was just curious that, I'm going through some footage. I'm watching some matches in the background as we're doing this. I feel like it tickles my ADHD just right while I'm watching who we're talking about in another corner of the screen and taking in what I can. I can't find shit for the Funks, any of them in Japan pre-1980 something. So I just, decide to go over to High Spots, because that is, if there's some bootleg fucking wrestling DVDs out that has some fan cam footage from Japan in the 80s, I know they'd have that shit. And I'm going through Terry Funk Japan DVD search, and Jake, you want to explain to me why there are, and listen, the logistics of who owns an ECW foot, I don't really give a shit. I'm not surprised. High Spots has been doing that for several decades, selling that shit. Selling DVD-Rs, 8-disc sets of DVD-Rs for $40. Rewritable. I could fuck up and lose 7 Terry Funk matches. What's going on? For $40 plus shipping?
I had to print these motherfuckers, so fuck you.
I just got a new DVD off of eBay.
PWG?
Yeah, and I opened it, and there was a High Spots logo, and it was like when you find out your phone is made by Foxconn slave labor. Someone very sad made this. All right, so getting back to All Japan, Terry actually appeared on All Japan's first ever show, teaming with Bruno Sammartino against Baba himself and Thunder Sugiyama, probably right, wrestling a best 2 out of 3 falls match. Back home, Terry was heading for a collision with Immortality. February 10th, 73, he beat Johnny Valentine for the NWA Missouri heavyweight title, one of, if not the title to say, all right, motherfucker, are you worthy of the NWA belt?
The show me title, if you will.
That's good. That's better than my cold opener.
Yeah, that is actually pretty good. I was actually going to have a historical lesson, but let Tyler handle the jokes from now on. Hold on. But yes, the Missouri title, that is the precursor. Like anybody that held that Missouri title, you were to see how you handled this, and then thus we will possibly discuss you being NWA heavyweight champion. That's why that whole theory of Ted DiBiase being groomed to be NWA champion. I think he held the Missouri title several times, and it was to see if he could be ready for the NWA world title. And if he wouldn't have jumped to Vince, he would have been NWA champion.
Mike's son?
Yeah, Mike's son. You know, Mike's boy, but then I believe the one that's on trial.
Ted
you know
Jr.'s daddy?
Yeah, Junior's daddy. Junior's daddy. Junior, who's going to be somebody's junior in
That's
jail.
a Mississippi song, too. I don't want to be down there.
Meanwhile, Brett Favre's still allowed to walk around with a pocket full of welfare funds, and nobody's the wiser.
I'm kind of fine that it's Ted Jr. taking the fall on that. He could have taken more.
No, Brett Favre. Brett Favre all day. Brett Favre should be taking the fall.
Ted, you walk up to the biggest guy in prison first day, punch him in the face, make him your Virgil, or you're going to become someone else's Virgil in prison.
What? That's the sound of a rattlesnake in your earbuds. That's right, if you didn't want the stone cold Steve Austin experience, you need to shut them earbuds off right now. As a matter of fact, why don't you just take them ears and rip them off? Because if you don't want stone cold talking to you, then you don't deserve ears. Can I get a hell yeah? I'm gonna go ahead and assume you said it. I'm here today because I want to tell you about my friends over at 10 Bell Pod. Tyler Wood, Nick Alexander, and Jake, the Man Scout Man, and bringing you some of the best wrestling content on the internet. Now can I get a hell yeah? While you're giving me a hell yeah, why don't you go ahead and pop over to their Patreon, go ahead and give a subscription, then why don't you hop your fat little ass right over to Pro Wrestling Tees and get a 10 Bell Pod exclusive t-shirt featuring all three of these beautiful men. You might be saying, what? Stone Cold, you think these men are beautiful? God damn it, I do. Now you get over there and you buy that t-shirt before I stomp a mud hole in you and walk it dry.
All right, this is such a bad transition. Here we go. So as things were looking up for Terry professionally, June of 73, tragedy hit the Funk family when the patriarch of the whole damn thing passed away from a heart attack at the age of 54. So obviously this is very tough on Terry. Mentally, he's very distraught. But it did leave Terry and Dory in charge of Western State Sports, and they would continue properly running it for as long as they could and keeping it a respectable stop on the NWA tour.
That's sad, but that makes sense. That a man that was born in the 20s died of a heart attack at 54 in the 70s. It's not even, you can't even blame that one fully on wrestling. Like, there's a 50-50 shot.
Yeah.
He was just going to die at 50 for a heart attack anyway.
Yeah. And, obviously these two young men are traveling the country. They've made a considerable amount of contact, so they've probably got talent knocking on the door to coming through. So, definitely could keep things going. And obviously, Dory's got his commitments, then Terry stays back. And then obviously, Dory's there and helps out when he can. So it'd be interesting, who was helping them help run this business as well, too. I'm sure they had their people that were set up through Senior that was already, doing stuff. But, yeah, running a territory while being NWA champion while the other son is trying to be NWA champion, that's a lot to juggle all at once.
We already mentioned Missouri title down. Terry then got a NWA World Heavyweight title shot at champion Jack Briscoe on September 13th. It was a 2 out of 3 falls match ending in a 2-1 on a DQ. And through 75, Terry lost several matches against Jack. But in December, finally happened. December 10th, 1975, Terry was in Miami Beach for CWF. And in what many considered an upset victory at the time, the 31-year-old Terry Funk won the whole damn thing, making Terry and Dory the first ever brothers to hold the NWA title.
First and only. And also, too, of course, they're the first. There's only been like 8 NWA world champions in the history of the belt. So, I mean, who else could it be?
Does Tyrus have a brother?
Yeah. Give it time. When you see footage of him holding the belt, like you can tell he's trying to be more of a champion. It's kind of funny because he's such a character in wrestling, especially if you've like only paid attention to his later stuff like ECW forward. To see him as NWA world champion, it's very turned down. It's very muted Terry Funk because he recognizes like, hey, I'm kind of representing the NWA, so I've got to like be a very legitimate champion. You still get, some of the oversells just for dramatic flair, but he's getting in there and wrestling guys like Jumbo Tsuruta straight up, balls out, but also too a lot of high spots. He's kind of very much in that same vein that, when people were looking at Harley Race, like, he's just a fucking high spot monkey doing all these backdrops and other suplexes and bullshit. Terry is very much in that same vein as well, too, like pushing forward the sport into a different level where I think, Dory Jr. was like, nope, keep it very grounded, keep it very simple, keep it in that old style of professional wrestling where I think Terry was really trying to do something here, much in the same sense that, Harley was doing that kind of thing where I think Jack and Dory Jr. were trying to uphold the old guard.
Terry would embark on a 14-month title reign as world champion, touring the globe to defend the belt. He beat Dick Slater in Georgia, Paul Jones in Mid-Atlantic, Dusty in Florida. He, of course, lit up his home territory as the champion, their homemade guy. He beat Harley Race, Jerry, and Jack Briscoe. As Jake mentioned, he took the belt to Japan, beat Jumbo Tsuruta, and all this hard work earned him a PWI Wrestler of the Year. There's also reports that Terry defended the belt in Singapore and Australia. I could not find any proof of that, and some of these old NWA records have been known to be a little fibbed, but this is back when world champion meant world champion, not a couple Blood Money pay-per-views a year, or when AEW goes to the UK once a year for some indie show in a bingo hall, Wembley Stadium.
Or having the largest wrestling crowd in O2 history, that too as well.
They go to Australia once a year too.
About that. Yeah, we do that as well.
And Terry's style as champion was incredibly adaptable. Like Ric Flair gets a lot of love for, going in, popping territories, making the local guy look good, leaving by the skin of his teeth so that when he came back, the rematch would print money. And Terry did that too. And he had a different advantage. I think the knock on Flair is always, he has a routine. You're seeing the Ric Flair show. But Terry, you're seeing like a real fight, a different thing. He could technical mat wrestle. He could do Japan stiff as hell. He could also take your head off with a steel chair. And it was this flexibility in his matches with different opponents, constantly unique and credible and entertaining, that made Terry like a very good, underrated champion. He doesn't get enough love for the whole Ric Flair shtick.
Yeah, and like Harley had his match, obviously he would listen to the crowd and adjust it when he needed to, where I think Flair just kind of did what he did over and over again, no matter what. But I think Terry really tried to make each match different. Like if you see some of the matches around this time, they're so starkly different, where I feel like you can watch like a Ric Flair title defense in a Jim Crockett territory. Like it's pretty much kind of the same. You kind of know where you're going to get, even a little bit too Harley, unless there's some sort of distinct angle that's set up, very similar to like the Von Erichs would do something like Harley was always very good about like, what is the angle that we're doing before we get to the match, and then telling that story in that match. But, he had some stuff that was very similar from territory to territory. But obviously, you're the champion and you gotta protect yourself at all costs. And obviously Harley's got his stuff that he wants to do and get in for sure because he's the champion. And sometimes you don't always see what the other guy has. Where I feel like Terry, like you kind of really get to see what people are really great at. Like I said, I always think about the Jumbo Tsuruta match for the NWA World Title. It really highlighted what Jumbo could do. Harley could get you there, but kind of Harley's way, where I think Terry was trying to do it as a collab, which made it more difficult, made it harder, which probably didn't work out for the best all the time, but definitely was a different approach than some of the other people that are holding the NWA title this time. And then pretty much once it gets past Flair, it becomes something completely different and not this anymore.
life as NWA champion was grueling. The travel was hard. You were in a different territory every week, if not every day, essentially living in hotels, away from home for months. And Terry, to his bones, was a family guy. He had married his childhood sweetheart, Vicky, back in August of 65. And the wrestling industry is already hard enough. So even before winning the title, Terry and Vicky were not doing well. They even briefly divorced for a minute. So while Terry is on the road as champion, he's also trying to fix his marriage and his personal life. So one of the best moments in his professional life, real life, not awesome. And that would lead to Terry politicking to give up the NWA title in order to save his family, which apparently very common for NWA champions, I guess other than Ric Flair. By the end of it, they're like, please, God, let me lose. Like, I don't want to do this anymore.
Well, even Ric Flair, I think there was a health scare with Beth, and he was like, please, I need this belt off of me. And somebody got hurt, and he was like, well, I guess I got to carry it longer. So this is usually how it happens, is like, my life is shit right now. Please get this belt off of me. I'd like to go home now. Like Tyler Wood always says, it's the money and the miles, brother. Those are the only things that are real.
So finally, February 6, 77, Terry lost the belt to Harley Race at Maple Leaf Wrestling in Toronto. Harley caught Funk in a indigenous person's deathlock, losing the match. And Terry had actually pushed for Harley to take the NWA title specifically because when Terry won it, there was literally like a 50-50 split on who they were going to give it to. And Terry thought that Harley deserved it.
What if it originated in New Delhi? Does that change what you call it?
No, then it would be the Indian deathlock.
I didn't.
I'll have to bleep that now.
We really are bleeping that? Like, really?
Harley was actually trying to find India to discover the deathlock, and he accidentally ended up in the Bahamas. And that's why it's insensitive to call it that.
Okay, all right.
On YouTube, there is a Harley Race versus Terry Funk NWA title match in the feud back and forth on this. And it is roughly about 30 minutes. God damn, this is boring to watch. I know, Jake, go ahead. Light me up, but like...
No, I'm on your side with this.
Yeah.
I love them. I love Terry. I love Harley. I respect what the older dudes did, but
it's Jesus 2 out of 3 Christ. Falls. There's arm bars out the fucking ass. I get why a pile driver was a big deal because it's getting towards the end. They finally hit one. I'm like, thank God we're wrapping it up.
Well, you also keep in mind that they're wrestling for the people in the audience, and they're only concerned with what the people are buying at the time. So they're listening. They're listening to the crowd, and they're interacting with them, which are not properly mic'd up to this video footage that you're watching right now. And you're probably watching, is it a still cam or is it multicam?
Yep.
It's multicam. Okay. Well, that makes it a little bit better because I fucking hate it when people post like just one camera angle of their match. I'm like, you do realize you look slower and shittier. Multicam kind of makes it a little bit better, but at the same time too, like, they're not wrestling for the video of it all. They're wrestling for the people that bought the audience, and they've taken them on this ride, and they're listening to them. So if they're buying the arm bar, they'll go back to the arm bar. Sometimes I watch my match back. I'm like, man, you could have done this. But I was like, yeah, but the crowd was interacting with that. And yeah, you tried that, and it didn't work, but you were trying to do what the crowd were doing, and you were listening to them. And nobody fucking does that now. So thus, when you see somebody doing that, you're like, what the fuck is this horse shit? When it's like, oh, I don't know. They're just entertaining the people that spent money to come see your ass. Like, that's what they're doing. So yeah, it's out of context, out of time. Sports evolved into something else. So yeah, I get why you would feel that way. But you got to take into account how those people felt in that particular moment. And also, to listen to what I just said, how those people felt in that moment.
Ton of respect to the guys doing it. And I know they're actually beating the fuck out of each other. That's the thing where I'm like, man, I wish I could be more into this because I know these guys are going to come out of this hurt. And they've made a town, they've done some shit. But like, it's that separation of like what it's evolved from, too.
You also got to look at it, too. There's probably, at this time, there's 30-40% of the people in the crowd that are probably going, I want to see if this shit's fake. Where when the cats already get completely out of the bag and you're just looking for a show, you know what I'm saying? It's whatever, and you can be detached. But those guys stepped in that ring knowing that 30-40% of the people in that audience are trying to find holes in what you're doing. So thus, you have to make sure that things are done snug, tight, accurately, make sure there's no flaws in what you're doing.
And in all fairness, everything's like that. Like if you go watch old basketball, it's like, wow, Bob Cousy's one of the greatest because he could dribble with both hands.
Babe Ruth hit the ball.
Oh no, he didn't play with black people. That doesn't count. So,
so with that, Terry's time traveling the world as champion was done. Terry went home to Texas to continue mending his relationship with Vicky. Kind of a rare pro wrestling happy ending. It worked out. They got back together. They got remarried. And Terry said it was the most important victory of his life.
That's nice.
Like, Vicky was with him until the day she died. If he doesn't do this here, and he doesn't go home, or if he just just continues forward and doesn't recognize that he needs a break and he needs to fix this, who knows? Maybe it becomes one of these tragedies and we don't get like the back half. And this may be also kind of like a thing that kind of starts with him. Like he's gonna retire, retire, and retire. But every time he kind of goes home, recharges his battery, and goes back out again. Where like maybe this is where he learns it and recognizes like, fuck, I need to go home and work on myself before I go back out here because this shit is fucking tough on me. But at the same time too, he knows that slapping retirement on something makes money.
Worked him again, brother.
Yeah, exactly. Like.
And he still, despite having that happy ending, getting back together with his wife, smartest decision he ever made, still did plenty of crazy shit after this. Still put his body through a bunch of stuff. Yeah. Any little bit helps in wrestling, it feels like. Just stacking those pennies.
After losing the belt, he did take a brief hiatus to be with his family, returning more to a more limited schedule, really for the majority of his career that's left. And I think that's kind of real star power, the ability to say, nah, I'm gonna go home for like 6 weeks. You can do WWF or whatever the fuck you want. Terry Funk will pop up wherever the fuck Terry Funk wants to pop up. So you'd see him working back at a home base again, dipping into territories more often, not for weeks or months, but days a lot of the times. Of course, not always. But throughout the 70s phase of his career, he proved it. He had won the world fucking title, and he will continue moving forward to show the world he's a draw even on a reduced schedule. Even trying to monitor his time away from home, he's still a pro wrestler. So he has to go out there and get that bread. He'd do a December 77 tour of All Japan, winning the Open Tag League tournament with his brother Dory, of course getting home by Christmas like a gentleman. And this is really the start of All Japan Terry and Dory. And similar to our co-main event, the Road Warriors, the Funks were brought in as like the Foreign Hills, but they're just too good and too awesome, and the Japanese audience would soon be behind him. And it's this combination of like spurt tours and that amazing Japan money that would lead to the Funks becoming All Japan legends, because they're going to do several tours there, fitting their schedule with that money.
Well, I think like the big thing is they were over there a lot. They also too appreciated the culture. I believe Terry learns like some of the language and was able to talk and communicate with them in a little bit of broken Japanese. And like you see what Kenny Omega was able to do as a babyface by learning the language. Terry was like the first guy to really do that. And really, Terry just learned like a phrase or two. And if you love this wrestler and then he's speaking your language to you, you're like, oh my God, this guy's amazing. I mean, look what like Hangman at Arena Mexico. Like I said, Kenny, when he was in Japan, being able to cut promos in Japanese. Like that's what Terry kind of did is appreciated the culture and became of the culture. And also too, I think Terry even said one of the big things, he would get on like the bullet train or like amongst the people. He would never like be off to the side or wherever he'd go out, hang out with the people and, wear his Texas Bronco jacket and out in public and say hi to people and take pictures with them, like of the people, much in the same sense of when he was growing up and living in the territory that his father owned. These are the people. I must interact with them. They need to see me. I'm the good guy. I shake hands and, like, oh, who's this guy? Oh, he's a wrestler. Oh, he seemed like a nice person. Yes, and he's fighting the evil Sheik and Abdullah the Butcher, which the Funks versus Abdullah the Butcher and the Sheik. This is the thing that sets up for Terry to be set for the rest of his life. This is the thing that gets him to buy a ranch and be able to do whatever the fuck he wants for the rest of his life. There's always the old joke that Randall Brown, the guy who built the High Spots wrestling rings, would always say. He'd always be like, "You want to know why Terry Funk retired in 1983? Because he could. Because he was making so much money and was doing such good business over there. And obviously Baba took care of those guys for, doing the amount of work that they were doing. And this is legend shit right here. The Funks versus the Sheik and Abdullah the Butcher. Like, this is the foundation for a lot of things. And it was a culmination of these foreign heels with these Americans that had embraced the Japanese culture and was of the people. And also, too, the way that Terry could be such a good baby face and call out to the people. And when he got his ass beat, like, you felt it. People talk about Ricky Morton on a cell. Watch Terry Funk taking heat. It is of that same level, especially in his All Japan work. Like, if you want to see selling that's different to Ricky Morton, but kind of in the same vein, Terry Funk in All Japan Wrestling at this time is a perfect example of that. So a guy who you love getting his ass beat, reaching out for his brother, for these guys that seem like these supernatural bad guys, this is just perfect. This is what pro wrestling is, and it's amazing. And Drew Big Business, and like I said, could allow Terry to retire if he wanted to.
Just imagine Terry Funk learning the Japanese language. Konnichiwa, arigato gozaimasu.
It's literally just small phrases like that, but the fact that he would take the time to know that and say that to the people, like, was like, "Oh, this is our guy. Yeah. This is our guy." Like, he speaks like us.
The white boy tried a little bit.
Exactly.
Another thing that would help Terry sort of, settle down a little bit was selling Western states. By 80, ticket sales were starting to dip a little bit. So the Funk brothers sold the territory to Blackjack Mulligan and Dick Murdoch for only $20,000, which is roughly 80 now and 26. The idea was that Blackjack and Murdoch would take care of them on the back end if it went well, but it did not. And the territory closed in 81.
Oh, Blackjack Mulligan has bought many a territory and then immediately not done the work necessary to keep it open. I think him and Flair bought like a piece of like a Knoxville territory that like crashed as well too. Yeah, Blackjack Mulligan, not really the best businessman in the world. I think he also had a piece of Florida as well too. Also, Dick Murdoch. Can you imagine Dick Murdoch balancing the books? Like, I don't see that happening.
Terry continued to appear in various territories, and in 81, one trip would birth a collision between two territory titans when in Memphis, Terry got into a full-blown hate feud with Jerry the King Lawler. So, of course, our longtime listeners know. Of course, wrestling history nerds know. People of a certain age know. But Jake, explain to those who think Jerry is just this commentator and sexual deviant, which ain't not true, but explain to them the just unmitigated star power of Jerry Lawler in Memphis in the late 70s throughout the 80s and what Terry was stepping into.
Obviously, everybody knows about the Andy Kaufman thing, but also, too, he was the star of Memphis. And while he was in Memphis, he was able to keep it open for years off of his star power alone. When all the other territories closed, it was Jerry the King Lawler's star power that kept Memphis wrestling going through Memphis wrestling to USWA. He ran for mayor, and yeah, it's laughable. He got third place and fourth place a couple of times, but Jerry, just the man. And in that early 80s too in Memphis, like that territory was so on fire. Also too, it's prime Lawler. Lawler had just turned from heel to babyface, and that's when this territory was really taking off. And then just sprinkle in the Fabs, sprinkle in, Superstar Bill Dundee and a lot of the other talent that's coming through. And also during this time, like early 80s, you're trying to get people in to make Jerry the King Lawler look good. This is when Lawler is having matches with Harley Race for the NWA World title. You're bringing in all these people, so obviously, logically, bring in Terry Funk, former NWA champion. And, Jerry's a very creative person, and you had to be in Memphis. You had to be very creative. And Terry's always been very creative and outside the box. I mean, their thought process was to have an empty arena match, which has been done multiple times over, and then obviously in COVID got took to a different level. But the empty arena match is regarded by Jerry Lawler and Terry Funk as the biggest failure, because you got to keep in mind during this time, it was do something on television that's going to get people to buy tickets at the live show. And that's all the empty arena match was to do some sort of an angle in which to get people to buy tickets to see it in the arena. And as it was done, there was a match versus Funk and Lawler, and there was some big dispute. And then Terry was saying that the referee was on the take. It was a hometown referee. That's why this happened. And then the crowd got behind it. But if we were a neutral playing field, like, I would have beat you easily, and you didn't have some crooked hometown ref, I would have beat you. And thus that gave the impetus for, like, let's set up the ring. I'll meet you at the arena with no crowd cheering you on, mano a mano against each other. And there's no blueprint for this. Like, now there's a blueprint for this. There's several different iterations of it, like Rock and Mankind and the cinematic stuff and COVID stuff. This was the first thing. And like I said, this was only just been an angle to sell tickets, and it didn't sell tickets. It didn't sell enough for them. Neither one of these guys view this as a success. But as a piece of art, as a piece of wrestling television, this is quite possibly one of the single greatest performances you will ever see in professional wrestling. Terry Funk's performance in the empty arena match is of legend. It is easily top 3 best performances of all time, of a pro wrestler doing anything in professional wrestling. In my opinion, you have Stone Cold's Austin 316, which basically launches 2 catchphrases and a career that skyrockets to one of the biggest things ever. Probably something else, maybe something with Hulk Hogan that sparks a generation or whatever, or maybe something. I don't know what else that other thing would be, but that other thing in the top 3, and you can rank it however you want, is the empty arena match. Because Terry Funk just takes it to just another level, and I feel like, you know, he'd always kind of been the bad guy, the over-the-top heel, the over-the-top good guy in all these territories that he's traveled across the country. But through the tape trading era, through, you know, all the smarks and the message boards, like this performance over and over again, I think this was the thing that when people brought him into ECW, this is what they were hoping and envisioning. And this is the Terry Funk of crazy, insane, unpredictable. This is a reputation that he built, that he lived off of for decades. And made a career off of it. And this highlights that, accentuates that. It's just unbelievable. Screaming, and is he under the ring, Lance? Is he under the ring? Where the fuck is he at? And Lance being the consummate straight man. Like, listen, you need to watch your language here, so we can't use it. He goes, I don't give a fuck. Like, just the belligerentness, what he does before Lawler ever walks down to that ring is unbelievable. And I like I said, I don't think we've seen 3 performances better than that. That's how I think important, incredible, amazing the empty arena match is. It is just unbelievable. It's exceptional. You know, you guys were talking about like, oh, you know, Harley and Terry, like this match was very dated. I don't think that pro wrestling will ever get too far away from the empty arena match not being cool as shit. Like, pro wrestling would have to turn into Mr. Beast versus some other like TikTok star having matches. It'd have to get to that level where we don't even employ wrestlers anymore. And that's WrestleMania, is just YouTube streamer versus TikTok streamer. And it's a 12-match card of that.
Is that night 1 or night 5?
Yeah. Yeah. It'll be a 5-night event. Even when wrestling becomes that, the empty arena match will still be viewable, viable, breathtaking, and will leave you in awe once you see it. I have talked now for probably 15 minutes about this, and I could go another 15 citing specific instances in it, but I think I did its justice. So,
I watched the entirety of the match while you were talking.
Yeah, exactly. There you go, Nick. Now you know what it feels like when you go on and on and on about how great something is, and then I throw it to you guys to jump in and contribute, and then get mad when you guys don't. So now you know what it feels like, Nick.
It's crazy we're only like 4 years removed from that match that we were just like, eh. And rewatching this one, they keep the pace change from late 70s wrestling to early 80s wrestling. And I'm sure it differs from territory to territory and like the style of the people involved. But man, they sped it the fuck up. There's not a bunch of rest holds. They're beating each other up. They're striking. It's a big difference.
You know, again, we think of Jerry as just this old commentary guy. Maybe you remember his Burger King feud with Bret Hart. He could go back in the day, and then he's in the ring with Terry Funk. So, like, you know, that's a fuse.
Not just in the ring, took his eye out, Nicholas. My eye!
Yeah,
My
that
eye!
part.
My eye! Crying like in the middle of the ring.
Yeah.
Where do you go from there? That is wild for an ending.
So despite being still very much in demand by the early 80s, Funk was considering stepping away from the ring. He had been wrestling for nearly 2 decades. I don't know what else is left to accomplish. His body was feeling the toll, and he had already taken a step towards Hollywood. In 83, during an All Japan tour, Terry announced his retirement at only 39 years old, but not before releasing his debut album, 1983's Terry Funk Texas Bronco LP on vinyl. Google it. It's chaos. It's a hodgepodge of funk music, Japanese commentary, Terry singing, country music, pro wrestling audio, Terry kind of giving like a shoot interview over the whole thing. And of course, mentioning his retirement.
I mean, that's how over he was. He just kind of sing, and then we'll make an album out of it, and we'll sell it and make money on it. That's how big of a deal he was at this time.
You know who produced it? Who like wrote the music for it?
Jimmy
Best
Hart,
wrestling
right? Yeah.
music producer in the business.
So on August 31st, 1983, Terry and Dory beat Stan Hansen and Terry Gordy. Funk grabs the microphone and gives a farewell speech, weeping with emotion. Japan #1 forever, forever. Or as dyslexic Terry would say from the cold open, Froev.
You can't. That's not how he said it, Nick. Can you say it how he said it?
No, Jake had.
No, I don't have to. Not the dyslexic version, but yeah, him screaming, forever, forever, forever. As much money as he made in that country, and now I can retire at 39, he should be screaming forever, forever. Like, yeah, it's emotional. They're freaking out. They're loving it. He's covered in streamers. I'm sure, like, Terry's thinking, like, all right, I made enough money. I've got a ranch now. I paid this ranch off.
Was it a working
I mean, you don't
ranch?
have like I think he was making a business out of it, from what I understood, and he had horses as well too.
Horses get sick.
Show horses and stuff like that. So, yeah, exactly. As excuses he's used many a times before. But yeah, I mean, like if you see some of the promos that he cuts in ECW, like he has like full on tractor equipment, and I don't know, maybe he's got a ranch in the same way that Stone Cold Steve Austin has a ranch. Yeah. It may be that, but I was under the impression that he had like full on cattle there, and they were branded with the double cross insignia. Like I was under the impression it was a working ranch, and he was set up, and that was paid off, and he wasn't going to need to work ever again if he didn't want to. At least not in pro wrestling. I think he had much more work to do in a different field.
It's interesting too to looking at this cage match timeline. 13 months, right at a year.
Just like Flair getting "I'm sorry I loved you" in the face, this is one of the most emotional, amazing, perfect endings that obviously didn't hold for 5 fucking minutes. And during his hiatus, Funk actually did explore different ventures, notably acting and stunt work. Terry had been in a movie with Sylvester Stallone in '77 called Paradise Alley, a movie about pro wrestlers, and became like decent enough friends with Stallone and sort of his orbit. And that would lead to Terry being a regular on a short-lived Western series called Wild Side.
Let's take a step back. Paradise Alley. Like Funk goes on and on about Paradise Alley. And when I did the virtual gimmick table with him, he still had his character's robe that he wore to the ring in Paradise Alley.
Oh, shit. That's cool.
We tried to auction it off, but he had a reserve on it. and the reserve was not met.
What was it?
It was thousands of dollars. I mean, this was in a movie with Sylvester Stallone.
Fuck that, it was on Terry Funk's body.
I mean, yeah, exactly. It was on Terry Funk's body with Sylvester Stallone, like, in this fucking movie, and you guy who bid $850 is not getting this fucking robe. Sorry. Like, everybody talks about Paradise Alley, but kind of a shit movie, am I right? Like,
I've actually never seen it. Nah, I need to.
The little bit that I saw of it, it seemed very slow.
That's the problem with these kids. They don't appreciate how film used to be paced. They're telling a fucking story in that movie.
Fair enough, but don't worry. Let's all just jump to Roadhouse, where he does his absolute best work of all time.
Obviously, the big one here is Roadhouse in '89. Just a few more highlights. He was in the fucking TV show Swamp Thing, Quantum Leap. Terry also helped with the fight scenes in Rocky V in an off-camera role, and then most importantly, he had a cameo in Thunder in Paradise, Hulk Hogan's vehicle. He also did a fucking Wendy's commercial you can find, I think, on YouTube.
Well, and he always talks about this time because he got SAG.
Yeah, he was excited for fucking insurance. That a tale as old as time in the U.S.
Yeah, and he'd always do like, that's why like there's all of these sporadic things of like, oh shit, Terry Funk's in this. Like, I didn't know he was in the Swamp Thing series. He's doing just appearances to keep his insurance through SAG, and that's why like you watch Johnny Knoxville,
Jackass 2.
plays a
Oh, it's The Ringer.
Yeah, The Ringer. Terry Funk is just this big guy in the background. I guess somebody was betting on the Special Olympics, and like Terry Funk was that guy's muscle. Like, keep in mind, like, message board. I don't know what was going on at that time, but like this should be like the headline of PWI Insider. Terry Funk in the new Johnny Knoxville movie, but he's just like in it, and I was watching it like, oh shit, there's Terry Funk. So there's like all kinds of stuff that, you know, you just list a few. He just, you know, made sure he kept up with his SAG commitments and kept up with his dues, and he got his health insurance.
Something Terry Funk and I have in common. I was a stand-in on the Swamp Thing reboot. Yeah,
oh, nice.
I apparently
cool.
look enough like the monster. They just put me in a green t-shirt and they're like, stand there.
Yeah, and I don't know if it was the SAG thing or maybe his dad working for Pullman, but Terry Funk, very pro wrestling union. As am I. I think it'd be a good idea. But yeah, that SAG insurance, if it's anything like WGA, is like, do whatever you want. It's very good.
Even if the pro wrestling union was just that, in the sense that you prove that you're trained enough to be a pro wrestler, you will then be a part of this. You pay your dues. If you work for a certain promotions for a certain period of time, you get health insurance. Like, even if it was just that, I think I could get behind it a bit more. But obviously, I know it's so fucked from beginning to end, and it would become way too political. Much like everything in pro wrestling, it gets so fucking diluted with corporate America and greed. It would have failed. But if it was that, then maybe I can get behind it.
And of course, Terry was in Beyond the Mat, arguably the greatest pro wrestling documentary ever. I'm sure that will pop up a little bit later. After roughly a year and 2 months off, Terry yearned for the mines. October 26, 1984, he popped back up in NWA St. Louis, tagging with Dory against the Road Warriors, of all people. Late 84, motherfucker was back in All Japan, where the Funks competed in the Real World Tag League. He started off 85 doing a handful of Pro Wrestling USA's, AWA dates, before signing with WWF smack dab in the middle of rockin' wrestling.
And I love the fact that Terry was able to keep his name, but we had to turn Dory Funk Jr. into Hoss Funk. I love that.
Basically what happened here, Terry examined the pro wrestling landscape and he saw what was coming. He saw the cable boom coming. He knew NWA was screwed. And instead of clinging to the past and old man yells at cloud, he hopped in with a new cool thing.
I want a big rubber doll of me, okay? Like, that's what I want. I want the residuals for that, because now I know about residuals. And this guy's talking royalties off of action figures, and there's a bunch of kids watching this shit because of Hulk Hogan. They need somebody for their Hulk Hogan doll to beat up. So guess what? That Terry Funk doll is going to do the job every night of the week. Give me them royalties, Vince. Give me those royalties. Give me those residuals.
Tag shit rolling in, and he brings those checks over to Vince. He's like, I'll get this for not doing a goddamn thing. Vince is like, fuck.
I get this for past work. This is amazing.
Jesse Ventura pokes his head in the door. Vince's like, God damn it.
Vince, have you read the Constitution?
Terry's first match would be a taping for WWF Championship Wrestling, June 17th, 85, where he beat Mario Mancini and Aldo Marino in 2 different matches, a double taping. And so much for not being home a lot, because he was about to hop on that brutal 80s WWF house show circuit, popping in for TVs. And Funk went full-blown, unhinged, outlaw cowboy, carrying a branding iron down to the ring.
He also would spit tobacco at the camera. What they would do is they put up a little the plexiglass in front of the camera, and he would spit the tobacco right at it.
He spent a big chunk of 85 doing a house show feud with JYD.
The Junkyard Dog feud that I believe culminated in the Saturday Night's main event.
Yeah.
Where he wrestled Junkyard Dog.
3.
This, gentleman, is the match that is one of my earliest memories and one of the first wrestling matches I ever saw in my entire life. And I thought it was Ted DiBiase for a long period of time, but all I knew was some guy in black tights, and my parents said that wrestling was on late at night and they were going to record it for me because we just got a VCR and they had it on blank tape and they recorded wrestling from the night before. So it had to have been Saturday Night's main event. It had to be roughly about this time. And I could never find a match with Ted DiBiase that would have been on television that we would have saw. But Saturday Night's main event tracks, and kind of the timeline in which I tracked it all down, it was Terry Funk versus Junkyard Dog. And if you've ever seen my wrestling career and the things that I like to do, and then you watch this match, you're like, oh yeah, this all makes sense why Jake wanted to do this the rest of his life. And this is why his matches are the way they are. 40 years of love of professional wrestling because of this one little thing on a timeline of Terry Funk's life.
Would you believe that the first match I remember seeing was Rikishi and Scotty 2 Hotty versus somebody on a SmackDown in 2003?
Go fuck yourself. Oh my God, it's even post Brian Christopher too. The Too Cool had already broken up.
November 27th, 85, at a house show in Denver, Terry lost a WWF title shot at Hulk Hogan. And they'd meet a few more times before they took that routine over to Saturday night's main event. It aired January 4th, 86, filmed a couple weeks earlier. You can see Hogan in green boots and tights. That's how old this is. Face Terry, and Hulk's still kind of fucking trying and shit here. He was moving. Yeah, I was like, that's been a minute. But after a bunch of fuckery with Jimmy Hart and JYD ringside, Hulk catches Terry distracted with the ref, screams the N-word, and then decks Terry with a clothesline 1, 2, 3. After which, Terry starts chunking chairs into the ring, further cementing his unhinged vibe. Yet a person who stands up for civil rights.
Which Terry?
Funk. To be very clear, Terry Funk, not Balia.
Very clear, very clear.
So obviously Terry is very accomplished already, but as far as national exposure, especially in one shot, just pure numbers, wrestling Hulk Hogan for the WWF title on NBC, which did a 10.4, I think that's almost 18 million people. That had to have been Terry's biggest match, just a sheer volume of people seeing it. It had to be his biggest match ever.
Yeah, and they did this a lot like they did with Harley. Obviously, Harley was wearing a crown, and here's Terry Funk in a cowboy hat. It's very 80s WWF, but at the same time too, if you're in the know, you're like Hulk Hogan versus Harley Race or Hulk Hogan versus Terry Funk. If you're in the know, this is a big match, even wrestling wise. So I see why it has such a prime spot, and thankfully we got this. Thankfully Terry's not like, yeah, I'm good on the ranch and everything's good and I'm never gonna wrestle again. We got this.
Following this, Terry would stay on the house show circuit, again facing Hogan. From time to time, he'd mix in JYD, Pedro Morales, George Animal Steel. He even tagged with Hoss Funk. And that would be the build-up to Terry's first ever WrestleMania, but the WWF's second. And 2, of course, is the one filmed in 3 different locations, New York, Chicago, LA. And what we can only assume was some sort of Vince McMahon cocaine-induced fever dream of an idea. But Terry is on the LA wing, and he and Haas beats Tito Santana and JYD in the penultimate match of WrestleMania 2, just doing a bunch of dirty heel shit. And if Saturday night's main event didn't do it, this introduced Terry to a bazillion new fans. However, after WrestleMania 2, he'll do like one more Saturday night main event, and he's out that bitch.
Yeah, I mean, he did it. He got the paycheck. It's like, all right, here's some more money. I'm just stacking dollars upon dollars at this time. You got Hollywood residuals. You got SAG insurance right now. Like, this is all literal gravy. And also, too, the fact that you're there and you weren't long for this world anyways. They were going to go in a different direction anyways. But because you came in, worked with Vince McMahon, you were in his good graces while you were there, he will allow you to make money in wrestling in the 90s. Since you were good to the king back in the day, he will take care of you.
And for what it's worth, like Terry's WWF run, it's kind of good.
It feels tidy.
Like he had to cartoon up his character. I don't think he was asked to do anything like incredibly artistically compromising. He was treated like a main eventer, respected, credible heel to work Hogan. And, he got out of there on a high note.
Yeah.
He understood the assignment. I'm here to be a character that you're going to turn into action figures, part of this cartoon world. I'm going to put over Hogan. And once we've done that, I'll ride off into the sunset.
He took some time off. He pursued some more acting opportunities. But of course, Terry still wrestled. He did a couple dates in Puerto Rico in September. And in October, he was right back over to All Japan, where he would finish off 86. Then he doesn't wrestle in 87 until August, again, wrapping up that year in All Japan, tagging with Dory. And I assume this is when he's filming the 1987 Sylvester Stallone movie Over the Top, where Terry plays a roughneck henchman. So, filming it in 86, it's released in 87, makes sense, sort of this time. Then he takes off basically all of 88 for what I assume he was filming Roadhouse.
The greatest movie of all time. The double douche, as Sam Elliott would call it. Should have never been remade. Why would we work on perfection?
Yeah.
Wait, they remade Roadhouse?
Yeah, they put Jake Gyllenhaal in it and Conor McGregor. They put
Oh,
him on
God.
Wait,
Amazon.
Jake Gyllenhaal is playing Patrick Swayze?
Not good.
The fuck? Yep. Did they work on his posture enough for him to stand up straight?
Yep.
That's coming from me.
I totally missed that.
It's not good.
Then Terry returned to the NWA, albeit WCW's version of it, in May of 89 at WrestleWar 89 in Nashville. So he's not in this, but this would be the third of the big famous trilogy between Ric Flair and Ricky Steamboat. After Flair won back the NWA World title, Terry Funk entered the ring, and what followed would be one of the all-time great pro wrestling angles. Initially respectful, Funk challenged Flair to a match, which Flair replied saying he had been spending too much time in Hollywood and was not a top contender. Funk's demeanor immediately changes. He snaps. He beats down Flair, punctuating it with a devastating pile driver on the announce table. Add to it, Flair had a lot of well-known neck injuries, and he sold it like he might be paralyzed. And this one incident set up Flair versus Funk as the hottest feud of the year, and that is not a turn of phrase. Terry Funk, who started wrestling in 1965, was about to have the feud of the year in pro wrestling in 1989, literally PWI and Wrestling Observer feud of the year.
See, the interaction that these two men had at the end of this match should be fucking studied. And also, too, the whole setup. Like, they knew what they were going to get to at the end after the match. They knew there'd be a beatdown and all that stuff. But the way that Terry plays it in the beginning, and he's out there for this match, classic match between Steamboat and Flair, and just the way that Terry's very polite all the way, But then, like, after this match, he gets very excited, very ramped up, and then he's in there in the ring with Flair. And the idea of, like, you can kind of see this old man he wants to be a part of, like, I'd really like to have a date with you. Maybe we set up a date, or I challenge you for that title. And you know what, like, this is what infuriates me, because Flair, he became, like, such a caricature, which people loved, and that was great, and I get it. But, like, the whole thing of Flair going, you spent a lot of time in Hollywood. I don't think you're really part of the rankings. Like, just that subtle thing where he wasn't trying to be a dick, but it came off as a dick, to which then that disrespected Terry. And just the level of, okay, Terry should have been pissed off, and Terry could have just pushed him. They had a pull apart and would have been ever, and then Terry would have been kind of the good guy out of it. But because Terry took it so far overboard, that made him the bad guy, and then made you want to see Flair kick his ass. But also, too, like Flair just got done being a heel with Ricky Steamboat, and now you've turned him to like the baby face in this whole angle. Everybody's out there just cutting promos, trying to pop the crowd, pop Twitter, pop social media, have a cool phrase to clown somebody, roast somebody, show how much cooler you are. And you're like, well, I just roasted you with no concept of I was supposed to be the bad guy in this. People were supposed to cheer for you, not me. And not even thinking about like, where are we trying to get to? And that's what the art of just wrestling is in general, is getting that emotion and pulling that out. And these men execute it perfectly. And just the interaction after this match should be fucking taught in every fucking wrestling school and should be told to wrestlers. Every time you talk on a microphone, you need to create this. This should be the building blocks of what talking on a microphone is. It's about, this is the good guy, this is the bad guy, and then we got to get people to get behind that whole concept. And that's part of the reason why it's the feud of the year, is because it's just set up perfectly. You understand how we got there, and it was slow. It was deliberate. It got there. It all made sense. And the violence, it mattered.
So after a few TVs, Funk was back on the road for 89's Great American Bash Tour, primarily working with Sting. Obviously, Flair is selling the neck injury, so they can't be fighting the whole time. Terry ended that tour with a heavyweight title shot at Flair at the actual Great American Bash pay-per-view 89 in a wild brawl that included interference from Great Muta, Flair being saved by Sting. After the match, Flair begins a promo with, I haven't said thank you in 10 years. And I was like, that explains some of those divorces.
Yeah, he hasn't said, I'm sorry I fucked your sister in a while either.
Yeah. He did say thank you, though. He did say
no, I feel like he'd get done having sex with a woman and go, you're welcome.
Oh, yeah.
Flair and Terry would finish up summer and go well into fall facing each other on the house show circuit, just printing money. They were obviously using TV to build the feud in between, and that includes Terry Funk running in on a Flair and Sting versus Dick Slater and Muta match September 12th, Clash of Champions 8, where Terry fulfills the dreams of not only Jake Manning, but many a server in Charlotte, North Carolina, by putting a plastic bag over Rick's head and suffocating him.
Yeah, factual. You know, Nick? Best writing. You started with the worst writing and then end with the best writing. Factual, accurate, and funny. Beautiful.
That actually got Terry suspended, in kayfabe, by WCW. He appealed it, and he was back for 89's Halloween Havoc, where Funk and Muta took on Flair and Sting with special guest ref Bruno Sammartino in a Thunderdome cage match, which was apparently electrified. And you know it's full of electricity there because it fucking caught on fire as they were lowering it, and Muta had to put it out with his mist. it's the best thing ever.
Well, it's good his mist wasn't flammable.
How does a Japanese mist work? Do they like sip some water beforehand, or are they just like keeping spit?
Did you not see the Great Muta commercial tape released by All Japan where he went to hell and fought the devil and won?
Okay, this is how.
I see.
Okay.
Yeah, that's how. He fought the devil and he won, Nicholas. Okay?
Some dumb fuckers ask for the ability to play guitar.
I want to go to hell and fight the devil.
The finish for this is kind of important for the later match. The finish is Terry in a figure 4 leg lock as Sting splashes down on top of him. So they were doing this throw in the towel thing. Gary Hart's managing Terry, Ole with Flair. Ole decks Gary, which causes the towel to fly up into the air onto Bruno's shoulder, so he calls the match. But the thing is that Terry's knee took a massive amount of damage here because he was in the figure 4 for so long. And that is going to play into the blow-off, which is the I Quit match. November 15th, 1989, Clash of Champions 9, Troy, New York. Dramatic, bloody, both men beat the hell out of each other. That ends also in a very long figure 4 leg lock until Terry screams, I quit. And with this, Terry Funk had taken what could have just been a late career footnote and again proved he was one of the best wrestlers on the planet. Following this feud, though, Funk briefly became a broadcaster in early 90 with WCW. In October, he did some USWA spots, including wrestling Brickhouse Brown, and again wrapped up the year with a big old All Japan tour tagging with Dory. In 91, he stepped away from WCW and has a pretty slow year. He did do some matches with Lawler, so, basically the 10-year anniversary of that feud, where Terry delivers some pretty epic promos. I can't remember the phrasing. I think he called Lawler a baby banger or something like that.
You pervert! He calls him a pervert all the time.
So they know.
You pervert! Terry Funk will let him know.
Terry did a match in All Japan where he faced Dynamite Kid, so even crazy, more overlap there. He's off the radar for most of 92, but does end up in Catch Wrestling. But 92 is an incredibly slow year, which leads to 93. And maybe I think it's time for, Terry to slow it down. But Terry's like, no, fuck you. I'm going to become the greatest hardcore wrestler ever. And so begins Hardcore Funk's era. And that is where we will pick up on part 2 of Terry Funk.
Yeah, keep in mind, guys, we haven't even got into the hardcore wrestling stuff, the ECW stuff, WCW runs, WWF runs. And then not to mention just the random appearances of him just fucking shit up on the indies. We just made jokes about him calling Lawler a baby banger and a pervert. Guess what? In 2017, he's doing it on local radio stations. So there's still more craziness. There's blood. There's just so much more in part 2. We just got through the formal wrestling part of it. We're now to the promise that was laid down at the empty arena match that, like I said before, is a reputation he lived off for years. Well, this is where he proves it night in and night out in part 2 coming up. So very exciting episodes. We're about 12 years away from me actually like meeting Terry Funk and the insanity that was like. Every time, like, oh, Terry's in town? Oh, some crazy shit happened. Like, why does Terry Funk have a stick and he's walking around? Because he found it outside the hotel? He found a stick outside of the Fairfield Inn, and now he's carrying it around with him. Like, there's just always just stuff like that. And this is also where I meet people that tell more stories about Terry. And yeah, it's going to be nuts. This is where I get to meet him. So there's going to be personal stories that I haven't shared on any podcast anywhere. So exciting times.
All right. So yeah, thanks for listening to part 1. Check out our Pro Wrestling Tees store, Patreon. Remember, we have a Reddit now. Come by and say hello.
Dave Meltzer treatment on all social media platforms.
Yes, be contributing to the Patreon. I think we just added signed trading cards of mine. I'm actually mailing one out here today for somebody. Hopefully you've already got it by now. Yeah, that's a feature on our Patreon. You get my Upper Deck trading cards signed by me. So make sure you check out our Patreon.
All right. Stay tuned for Terry Funk Part 2. We will see you next week.